Hello everyone, welcome to What If Quirkless Deku was abandoned and got trained by Meliodas and Band Part 1. Before we start, please go support cismomusic for writing that awesome fanfic. This is the translated version I made. There will be some mistake in character's gender, but of course Deku is a male. This story focuses on a little boy of only 4 years old named Izuku Midorya, who lives in a world where people have powers. Gifts acquired from birth, these were called quirks. As the chapters go by, Izuku will experience many painful things, but that will not stop his dream of being a great hero like All Might. Chapter 1: Broken Dreams. We can see a mother and her son, only 4 years old, at the doctor's office. "Mother, doctor, why hasn't my son manifested his quirk? Is there something wrong with him?" "Doctor, Mrs. Izuku Midorya, I regret to inform you that your son is one of the 20% of people who are born without a quirk." The mother would just show a sad face. The child would look at the doctor and ask, "Doctor, does that mean I can't be a hero like All Might?" "Doctor, I'm sorry kid, without a quirk you can never be a hero, but you can become a police officer or a firefighter. They also help people, and in some cases, they help heroes." The boy would only have a look full of sadness. In his eyes the tears that were about to come out were forming. But the boy held back the urge to cry. Miss Midorya would say, "Well, thank you very much, doctor. See you later." So he would take his son's hand and say, "Let's go home, Izuku." The boy would stand up while showing a smile to the doctor, saying, "See you later, doctor, thank you very much." The doctor would only answer, "See you later, Izuku, take care." After leaving the office, the doctor would think, "Poor kid was born without a quirk. Apparently he dreamed of being a great hero like All Might. It's hard for me to have to tell a child that he can never be a hero. But the reality we live in is very cruel. Those who are blessed with a quirk use it to do evil and others to be heroes. But they are false heroes since they only seek fame and money. There are few true heroes." When they got home, Izuku's father would be waiting for them, along with his daughter Izumi, who would be Izuku's age since they were twins. "Father, honey, what did the doctor tell you? Why hasn't Izuku manifested his quirk yet?" "Inko, I'm sorry honey, but I regret to tell you that Izuku was born without a quirk." "Hisashi, so that means he'll always be useless?" Note: Izuku's father would be a professional hero, being below Endeavor, becoming the number 3 hero. His quirk was the ability to breathe fire, which was very respected and well known. His name is Hisashi Midorya. End of note. "Izuku, I'm sorry dad, I'm sorry I was born without a quirk," Izuku would say with tears in his eyes, looking at the ground. "Hisashi, don't call me dad, I'm not the father of a useless quirks." He would look at his wife and say, "This is all your fault. You should have given me a strong son with a great quirk. That son should be the new number 1 hero, but you only gave me this useless quirk. I thank God that at least Izumi has a quirk." Izumi had a quirk called pyrokinesis. This quirk gave her the ability to create a very powerful fire and control it at will. This was the union of the quirk fire of his father and the telekinesis of his mother. Izumi would say, "So I have a useless brother? But what a disappointment." "Izuku, please Izumi, don't tell me those things. I feel very sad knowing that I don't have a quirk. But still I will not give up and I will be a great hero like All Might." Hisashi would just look at Izuku and slapped him, saying, "You'll just be useless. Without a quirk you will never be anything. Now go to your room and get out of my sight. I don't want to see you." Izuku was lying on the ground while holding his cheek, tears falling down his cheeks from that blow. With a broken voice he would say, "Be but dad." "Hisashi, I already told you that I am not your father, the only one I have is Izumi. She does carry Midoriya blood, now go away." Izuku would just go to his room feeling very bad because of the words his father and sister had told him. He thought that at least his mother would defend him, but she never helped him. Izuku would just watch his computer, playing a video of All Might saving people. In the video, "All Might, do not fear, everything is fine now. Why? Because I am here." Izuku would shed a few tears, saying, "Can I also be a hero like you?" "That's not true, All Might." He said this while holding an All Might action figure. The next day, his best friend, Kaken, teased him for being a quirkless. He called him Deku, which means useless. Izuku said that even though he doesn't have a quirk, he wouldn't give up on his dream of being a hero. All his classmates as well as his friend laughed and teased him. When he got home, Izuku stood at the door. He was about to enter but heard his mom and dad arguing. He would remain silent to listen to what they were saying. After hearing everything they were saying, she couldn't help but shed several tears that fell from her eyes. His father said that Izuku was a nuisance, he wanted to get rid of him. Hisashi blamed his wife Inko for giving him a quirk son, and because of him his classmates now made fun of him. Inko just replied, "It's not my fault that he was born without a quirk. Also, how do you plan to get rid of it? It's too late to take him to an orphanage." Izuku would walk in and say, "Dad, Mom, why do you want to get rid of me? Do they not love me anymore because I was born without a quirk?" Little Izuku harbored deep within his heart a small hope of hearing from their mouths that they still loved him. His father would look at him and say, "I already told you, you are not my son, I don't have useless children." Those words hurt Izuku emotionally, since for him his father was someone he admired. Hisashi would order Izumi to get Izuku out of the house. The freckled man, hearing these words, said, "But why? Where will I go? And Mom, I am your son, why are you doing this to me?" The freckled man's voice was choppy. Her mother just turned around and walked away. "Izumi, Dad, don't you think you're being too harsh? It doesn't make you run it." Her father would just look at her very angry, saying, "Are you protecting that useless guy? If so, you will also go with him." "Izumi, I'm sorry Dad, I didn't mean to make you angry." She approached Izuku and with tears in her eyes she would say, "I'm sorry bro, please get out of the house. Don't make things harder," she whispered as she pushed Izuku out of the house. "Please forgive me, Izuku." Little Izuku would just look at her saying, "Don't worry, Izumi." The freckled man showed him a smile that overflowed with overwhelming sadness. "Hisashi, give him a warning of what will happen to him if he comes back." Izumi objected but saw her father approaching, starting to create fire. Izumi quickly told him, If you come closer to the house again, the next one will be stronger." That's what he said as he gave him a fire blast in the face. Izuku would receive her fully, covering himself a little with his arms forming an X. Due to the explosion he flew a couple of meters. When he looked up he saw his father say to him, "Don't ever come back. I wish you had never been born." After saying that he would close the door, Izuku would get up but he would feel a great pain in his right arm and in his throat. He would touch his throat and his hands would be covered in blood. He began to walk through the streets trying to ask for help, but his throat hurt too much to be able to speak. Unfortunately for him, it was raining and people were practically avoiding him. He collapsed in an alley, forming a small pool of blood. Chapter 2: A New Beginning. Suddenly, a person wearing a red jacket and pants passed by. His hair was gray, he was tall and had a scar on his face. That person would see Izuku who was lying down and say, "What the hell? Hey kid, are you okay?" He said this while touching Izuku to get him to react. When he turned him around he saw that he had a serious wound on his throat and a deep burn on his right hand. Seeing this, the person said, "Damn, he lost a lot of blood, he's going to die at this rate." The person quickly extended his hand and caused a wound, causing blood to fall into Izuku's mouth. He swallowed it slowly and suddenly Izuku's body began to heal, the wounds began to close on their own. But the burns left him with very noticeable scars. Person: "Well, with this you'll be fine, kid, but I wonder, where are your parents? Also, how did such a small child end up in that state?" I thought. He would charge at Izuku saying, "I can't leave you here." He walked for a long time and then entered a small house that was far from the city. Upon arriving they would be greeted by a person of medium height. His hair was blonde and he was dressed in a black tuxedo and a white shirt, he would say. "Wow, Ban, you're finally back. Why did you take so long?" This would not finish the sentence that would ask. "And that child?" The person now known as Ban would say. "I found him in a pool of blood, I healed him and brought him here. I couldn't leave him there alone in the rain, Captain. Can I put him to bed in one of the rooms, right?" Meliodas, "Yes, sure, Ban." Ben would tell him in more detail what had happened. When Izuku woke up, he wouldn't recognize where he was, he looked everywhere. Izuku would remember everything that happened and touch his neck, being greatly surprised to see that he had nothing. He would get out of bed and leave the room he was in. Izuku could smell a rich aroma coming from the room below. The little green-haired boy would arrive in a living room where two people unknown to him would be. "Ban, wow, you finally woke up, kid." "Meliodas, come sit down and eat. I guarantee you'll taste the best food in the world," he would say with a big smile. "Izuku, I'm sorry. Who are you guys? And why am I here?" he asked a little scared while hiding at the side of the door frame. "Ban, you're here because I was the one who found you, kid. You were lying in a pool of blood, I healed you and brought you here. My name is Ban and the short blonde-haired guy is the captain. Meliodas, nice to meet you, I'm Meliodas." He said this with a big smile. Izuku would calm down a bit saying, Thank you very much for saving me, Mr. Ban, nice to meet you, my name is Izuku Midorya." Meliodas, "Okay Izuku, come sit down and eat or else your food will get cold." Izuku would sit down and start eating. Upon tasting the food he said, "Wow, this is very delicious, it's the most delicious thing I've ever tried." Meliodas, right? "The food Ban prepares is the best in the world." They would eat until a question broke the silence. "Ban, hey kid, I know this is none of my business, but how did you end up in that state?" Meliodas would put on a serious face at that question, as he was intrigued to know who could have hurt such a small and innocent child. Izuku would lower his head, remembering everything that happened. Meliodas, "Ban, I don't think this is a good time for that kind of question." Izuku, "It's not okay. After all, Mr. Ban was the one who saved me." He would tell him everything that happened. Meliodas and Ban only had an angry face when they knew what their parents did to their son. Ban was the angriest since he had been through something similar when he was just a child. Izuku would get off his chair and say, Thank you very much for the food and for saving me, but I have to go now, I don't want to bother you anymore." Meliodas, "But where will you go? Do you have a place or a house to stay?" Izuku, "No, but I'll definitely find a place to spend the night." "Ban, you're not going anywhere, kid. From now on, you'll be staying with us. We will also train you to become the greatest hero that ever existed." Meliodas, "Come on, Ban, if you didn't say it, I was going to." Izuku, "See, can I really stay? I don't want to be a nuisance." Meliodas, "Of course, and you're not a hindrance. It's decided you're part of us now, Izuku." In this way 6 years would pass, and in those years Izuku had been trained by Ban and Meliodas, who had taught him fighting techniques. Izuku was happy to have been saved by Ban. For little Izuku they were his new family. Besides that, they supported him with his dream of being a hero. They had never judged or insulted him for not having a gift. Meliodas, "Are you ready, Izuku? Now you will face both of them at once." Izuku, "Yes, masters can attack." He would get into a fighting stance. Ban would launch himself at high speed, throwing a big punch. Izuku would barely dodge it. Izuku in his thoughts would say, "Behind me." He would turn around and see Meliodas with his sword, who was centimeters away from cutting his neck. He would barely dodge it, and the sword would cut part of Ban's face. Meliodas would be surprised to see that he has dodged it, being at a very short distance. "Ban, hey Captain, what are you doing?" Izuku would land a huge blow on Meliodas, who would have covered himself, but was still sent flying. He would quickly punch Ban in the face. He would spit blood and start attacking with his banyako. Izuku dodged them while concentrating to make an attack, but would be taken out of his concentration after receiving a strong blow from Meliodas that would send him crashing into a large tree. Meliodas would have lost vein in his hand, but Izuku would quickly get up and say, "Rapture." Taking the sword away from Meliodas, who was surprised, Izuku at high speed would be behind Meliodas and Ban. Izuku, 8,000 divine cuts. After saying that, several cuts appeared on Ban and Meliodas' bodies, which would make the two of them spit blood. But quickly Ban's wounds began to regenerate, and Meliodas would use his darkness to heal himself. Meliodas, wow, you really surprised me. I never taught you that technique. How did you do it? Izuku, that time when you two were fighting you used that technique against Ban. At that moment I watched closely as you did it, that was all. Meliodas, could you see me? But I did attack at high speed. Izuku, for some reason before my eyes everything was moving in slow motion and I could see it. Ban, wow, you are amazing kid, it's time we get serious, he said with a big smile. Meliodas, if you're right. Ben would raise his hands and say, Hunter's Feast. Suddenly Izuku would lose part of his strength, feeling weak, but with a kick he would be sent flying to a great height, where he would be received by Meliodas, who would give him a great blow to the stomach, sending Izuku crashing into the ground, creating a crater of a considerable size, raising a large curtain of dust. Upon hitting the ground Izuku would spit out blood. Meliodas, wow, I think I went too far. Ben would look at Meliodas and say, Hey Captain, where's your arm? Meliodas would look at himself, and see that his right arm had been cut off. Meliodas, wow, that kid really surprises me. As the curtain of dust dispersed, Meliodas' arm would be seen lying there. Ban, damn, and the NI. Before finishing his sentence he would feel a great pain in his stomach, and it was no wonder, since he had Meliodas' sword stuck in his stomach. Izuku would be behind Meliodas, who would receive a kick to the head, sending him flying a couple of meters. As Ban increased his strength and musculature, Izuku felt weaker and weaker. Without giving him time to react, Ban would grab Izuku by the head and crash him into the ground, knocking him out. Meliodas approached Ban as he repositioned his arm. Meliodas, wow, he really has great speed, at this pace there will be no one to stop him in the future. Ban, you're right, Captain. A few minutes later Izuku would wake up saying, Damn, I lost again. Meliodas, but you did pretty well kid, you impress me more every day. Chapter 3, Mutual Feeling. Meliodas, but you did pretty well kid, you impress me more every day. Izuku, by the way, Master Ban and Master Meliodas, I've had this doubt for a long time, you're not from this dimension, right? How did they get here? The freckled man asked, quite curious. Meliodas and Ban would be surprised by the question since they had never told Izuku where they were from. Meliodas, you see. Flashback. Meliodas, why did you call me Merlin? I was training with Ban. Merlin, Captain, do you remember that you owe me favor? Meliodas, yes, I do remember. Merlin, you see, I want you to be my guinea pig. Meliodas, no way, dead first. Merlin, I was recently able to create a portal that connects to another dimension, and I would like you to go to that dimension and see what it is like. It will only be for 3 days. Meliodas, okay, he answered quite doubtfully. Ban, if the captain goes, I'll go too. It sounds interesting too. I have exclaimed upon entering that room after hearing that request. Merlin, okay, take your sacred treasures just in case. I'll bring them back when the 3 days are up. End of flashback. Meliodas, and that's how we got here. Izuku, I see, well that was all. Meliodas, but as you can see here, years have passed and Merlin still hasn't opened the portal for us to return. Maybe something happened. Izuku, oh maybe time passes differently in this dimension. Meliodas, that's a good theory. Ban, okay, enough of that stuff. Who's hungry? Izuku and Meliodas shouted. Me, making a drop of sweat from Ban. So 3 more years passed. Izuku was already in high school. This was his 2nd year. It should be noted that Izuku is currently 13 years old. Note: Izuku had finished school somewhere else and started high school somewhere else, but he had never made any friends nor did he talk to his classmates. All he cared about was training to be the best hero, and he wouldn't have received as much teasing and mistreatment as in the original story. End of note. At night, Izuku, Ban, and Meliodas went out to catch villains as a hobby. They were like vigilantes, so to speak. Izuku had faced all kinds of villains. On one of those nights, Izuku fought against a villain who had a quirk that allowed him to launch blasts of air that pierced objects like walls, etc. Without realizing it, Izuku's eyes lit up for a second when he saw his opponent's quirk. At high speed, Izuku hit him on the chin, knocking him out. Izuku was wearing a suit like Meliodas's, but with the difference that this one had a hood. In addition, the Izuku suit had a white mask with red eyes that covered his face, and his hair was silver, which he dyed to confuse anyone who saw him. Izuku, I wonder how are my teachers doing? Meanwhile, Ban would find himself fighting against a guy who had the ability to increase his muscle mass while his strength and speed increased. The guy was muscular. Ban would be beaten brutally. His body would be covered in blood. Muscular would grab Ban by the head and smash him against the ground over and over again, leaving a large pool of blood. Muscular, what a disappointment! I thought you would be stronger, but you were just a simple fly. I wonder, how will Dabi fare with the other guy? Muscular was about to leave, but a voice stopped him. Hey, you stupid piece of shit. Where the buck do you think you're going? Ours was just a warm-up, he exclaimed with a smile. Muscular would turn around and see Ban's body standing as his wounds healed. Muscular couldn't believe how well he was. He thought he had a healing quirk. Ban, I'm tired, it's time to end this. He would move his banyako at high speed, placing his hands in front, saying, Hunter's Feast. Suddenly Muscular would fall to his knees and say, What the buck? My strength is gone. I feel weak. Looking at Ben, she would see how his body was more muscular and emanated an aura that scared her. Ban, it's time for me to pay you back for the blows you gave me. Ben would brutally beat Muscular until he was unconscious. He would say, Hey, why are you spying on me? Take care of the guy. He exclaimed, referring to Muscular, who was out of combat. From the shadows, a subject with black hair and yellow goggles would emerge and say, How the hell did you know I was watching you? He asked defensively. Ban, come on, that's more than obvious. This would return to its normal form to say, Now you're better, aren't you? I bet you were feeling pretty weak just now. Eraser, so it was you who caused that. Who the hell are you? Ban, I am the sin of greed, Ben the fox, he replied, sticking out his tongue with a mocking smile. At that moment Izuku would arrive and say, Wow, master, I see you defeated him easily. The freckled man would see the person in front of them. Izuku, wow, it's Eraserhead. Eraser, how do you know my name? Izuku, you are the hero who can erase quirks. You are amazing, I exclaimed, quite excited. Oh, by the way, this one pointing somewhere would say, There's another villain over there, can you take care of him? Eraser, okay. After all, I don't sense any bad intentions on his part. Meanwhile, Meliodas would say, Zate, these llamas aren't bad at all. He said this while being covered in blue flames. Dabi, how the buck are you still alive? You should be burned to a crisp, I would say, quite shocked by what I was seeing. Meliodas would emerge from the flames and his eyes would be pitch black and a mark would appear on his forehead. At that moment Dabi felt true terror. Meliodas, seeing that reaction, would say, When your gaze changes from hope to despair, it's a real pleasure for me, I would say with a slight smile. After saying that, he would hit Dabi in the stomach, making him spit out a large amount of blood. Dabi would be on the verge of losing consciousness while he was on his knees trying to breathe. Meliodas, not yet. Don't fall asleep, I'm not done with you yet. He began to brutally beat Dabi, leaving him with most of his bones broken and very serious injuries. Meliodas, wow, I think I went too far. He will meet up with Ban and Izuku, who were talking to Eraserhead. Ban, wow, Captain, you're finally done. Meliodas, yes, he answered with his hands behind his head. Eraser, why do they do it? You guys aren't heroes, are you? He asked. Meliodas, for fun and as a kind of training for the boy, he replied, pointing at Izuku. Eraser, and why don't they become heroes? You guys easily caught those three, Muscular and Dabi being the most dangerous ones. Ban, no thanks, we're just doing this for fun and training, we have no interest in being heroes. After saying this, the three of them would leave the place, leaving Eraserhead alone. Within minutes, the police would arrive and arrest the three villains. Eraser in his thoughts would say, "The boy in the mask makes me curious. Because of his height and voice he is very young." And the other two, the blonde-haired dwarf looked like a child and still defeated Dabi. Meanwhile, Izuku and his teachers would arrive home. The next day Izuku would be at the mall looking for some weights to train. Being so distracted, he would accidentally bump into a beautiful girl. Before the girl fell, Izuku would grab her by the waist, pulling her towards him. The girl would look into Izuku's eyes and feel the same warm feeling as that time. "Girl, I'm sorry for crashing into you, I was distracted." "Izuku, don't worry, that was my fault, I was distracted." "Forgive me, it's a good thing I caught you before you fell to the ground, I wouldn't want such a pretty girl to get hurt." This would give her a smile that would make the girl blush. This would ask, do you really think I'm pretty?" The girl played with her fingers as she asked that. "Izuku, of course, you are a very pretty girl, you have beautiful eyes." The girl, even more blushing, would answer, Thanks, you're so cute too." She was nervous and blushing so much that she could hardly form the words. This was the first time someone had told her she was pretty. "Izuku, my name is Izuku and are you a miss?" "Girl, nice to meet you, Izuku-san, my name is Momo Yayorosa." "Izuku, what a beautiful name you have, Miss Yayorosa." "Momo, thank you very much, Izuku." Momo didn't know why she had called him that, he wasn't someone special enough to call her that way. A slight blush would appear on her face. Izuku would tilt his head to look at Momo, who would have her head down, hiding her blush. She would notice that Izuku was looking at her, raising his gaze and asking her, what's wrong? Why are you looking at me like that?" "Izuku, I'm sorry, I didn't mean to make you uncomfortable. What happens is that I wanted to see those beautiful eyes of yours again, and even more so with your blush, they make you look very beautiful." Momo would be very red at what she had heard. Izuku's answer made her heart race, making her feel something she had never felt before. Izuku would just laugh as he approached her and gave her a kiss on her cheek, whispering, "Goodbye, Miss Yayorosa. And thank you very much for giving me your beautiful blush, I will never forget it." Momo would be blushing from the kiss she had received, the words did not come out, and she could not react either, she just watched as Izuku walked away. The brunette brought both hands to her chest, thinking, "See, could they be the same person?" Chapter 4, Momo's Hero. Flashback. One afternoon Izuku was returning home from school, when he saw a limousine on the street being surrounded by about 6 armed guys. Izuku watched as they pulled out the driver with a gun pointed at his head, and a little girl was pulled out of the back. The little girl would be the same age as Izuku, her hair was black as were her eyes, and next to her would be the one who was apparently her mother. The freckled man had a couple of knives and a mask in his backpack. He put them on to cover his face and pulled up the hood of his sweatshirt so that no one would recognize him. One of the kidnappers who was armed threatened the lady, who would be very scared since they were pointing a gun at her beloved daughter's head. He would point it at the lady, but before he could shoot, the gun flew out of his hand and into Izuku's hand. "Izuku! Outburst!" he immediately said. "Hunter's feast!" And everyone who was in that place lost all their strength. The kidnappers quickly turned their gaze, but 3 of them would receive a pair of knives on their shoulders, falling to their knees in pain. Izuku hits them at high speed, leaving them unconscious. The freckled man looked up as the other 2 raised their guns and fired without hesitation. Both of them fell to the ground from one second to the next while screaming. Their hands were in the air after having been cut off with exact precision. The freckled man was behind them, and without wasting time he knocked them out. He began to walk slowly towards where the last kidnapper was. The man tried to take the knife out of his hand while saying, Please don't hurt me." He would fall unconscious due to a kick he received in the face from the green-haired man. All of this was being broadcast on television as a helicopter was flying above them, recording the entire scene. Meanwhile, Ban and Meliodas watched television while changing channels until they saw on the news how that boy defeated 6 armed men. Ban and Meliodas knew that boy was Izuku. "Ban, way to go, kid, you gave them what they deserved." Meliodas, Sate didn't invite us to the party," he said while laughing. Meanwhile, Izuku would approach the girl who was scared by everything that happened. The girl would see the boy who was approaching and she would say, Please don't hurt me." Her eyes were glassy and she was about to cry. Izuku would bend down to see the girl and caress her head. The girl would only see the boy's emerald eyes through the mask, feeling something warm inside her. Izuku took off his mask, showing a big smile to the girl, saying, "Don't worry, everything is fine now." "Why? Why am I here?" This was All Might's phrase. The girl would just laugh a little, feeling calm. Izuku would put on his mask again. The green-haired man would carry her like a princess and take her to where her mother was. The mother would just hug her little daughter while looking at the boy who had saved them and thanking him. Izuku would just watch as the patrols approached and he would start to run quickly, disappearing from the sight of the 2 girls. Note: the cameras had failed to capture the moment Izuku took off his mask. End of note and flashback. Currently, Momo would be in her room thinking about Izuku and the kiss he had given her. While she was thinking that, her face showed a big blush. The brunette in her thoughts would say, "Why can't I stop thinking about him? Every time I do this, my heart races. This feeling is so warm, I want to see him again. His eyes, yes, I'm sure it's him. He was the one who saved me from those kidnappers that time. I could never forget his eyes, his smile." Meanwhile, Izuku would be training with Meliodas since Ban was making dinner, since for no reason they let Meliodas cook. Meliodas, "Well, Izuku, today I will teach you a new technique." After a long and hard training, Izuku would be exhausted. So the years passed and Izuku had already finished high school, and now he would have to wait 10 months to be able to take the entrance exam. In order to enter the best school for heroes that exists, the prestigious UA Academy. In that period of time that passed, Izuku had not met Momo again, but the green-haired man's body had changed after having been trained by Meliodas and Ban. Now his body was very well toned, as were his arms, which he had trained hard with weights. He possessed great, incredible speed as well as strength. One day Izuku would find himself walking through the city doing shopping. The freckled boy had already bought everything and was heading home, jumping over buildings, when suddenly he stopped when he saw a crowd of people gathered. His eyes could also see several heroes who were there. The freckled man could make out 2 of these heroes, Empty Lady and Kamui. Among the crowd there was a blonde, very thin-looking man who looked helplessly at the scene. Izuku would look closely when his eyes opened wide as he saw that a villain formed from some kind of slime was suffocating 2 girls he was holding hostage. These were Katsumi Bakuga and Izuku Midorya. Chapter 5. I thought you were different. The heroes couldn't do anything since one wrong move and the villain could hurt the girls. Izuku at that moment was carrying his backpack in which he always carried his suit and mask that he used to hunt villains at night. He put them on at high speed. The green-haired man was wearing a suit just like the one Meliodas wore when he was leader of the 10 Commandments, except this one was black and had a hood. His mask was white with red eyes, and every time Izuku went out into the city he dyed his hair silver. He would jump off the building, landing in front of the villain. The heroes looked on in amazement as a stranger appeared out of nowhere. Empty Lady, hey, get away from here. Leave the job to the professionals. Villain, oh, another hero, if you come closer I'll kill them. Izuku began to walk slowly towards the villain while listening to the screams of pain from the girls, who could no longer resist. The villain would attack Izuku, but in a great movement Izuku would be behind the villain holding the 2 girls. The villain would have a large hole in his body. He would quickly turn around to attack Izuku but would see that he was no longer there. Izuku found himself in front of the heroes who looked on in amazement at the speed and ease with which he saved those girls. No one could see Izuku's movements except for a thin blonde who was in the crowd. Izuku, I'll leave it to the girls, I'll take care of the villain, he said as he turned around taking an iron bar that was lying on the floor, and in a small twist of his hand the villain would be scattered all over the place. Izuku would drop the bar saying, "Wow, that's easy." Katsumi and Izumi had seen such a scene and could not believe how he had defeated him so easily. Izumi would see the masked man feeling a little nostalgic. Izuku would see a notebook lying on the ground. He took it in his hand, seeing that the notebook said, Hero Analysis. Under his mask Izuku would show a slight smile and approached Izumi saying, "This is yours, right?" Izumi, "Yes, thank you for saving me." The heroes began to approach Izuku, but he quickly made a great leap up the buildings. The freckled boy would take his things and leave the place. But halfway there he would be stopped by a muscular blonde, whom he easily recognized. Izuku, wow, it's the symbol of peace. Number 1 Hero All Might, it's a pleasure to meet you in person. All Might, wow, young man, you really impressed me. The way you saved those 2 girls was surprising. Not even a pro hero could have done better, your speed is amazing. Izuku, it was to be expected, I thought you wouldn't see me. But it seems you're the only one who saw the moment I moved. Can I ask you a question? All Might, yes of course young man. Tell me what your question is and I will answer it, he said with a big smile. Izuku, can someone who was born without a quirk be a great hero like you? There was a lot of seriousness in Izuku's words. All Might, well young man, reality is cruel, but without a quirk that person cannot be a hero. As you may know, in today's world there are people who are born with quirks that are dangerous and strong. If one of those people faces a person without a quirk, what do you think the result will be? So young man, no, that person can never be a hero no matter how hard he tries. Those words echoed in Izuku's head, who beneath his mask had a look full of sadness, as he expected to hear something different from the hero he admired so much. Izuku, I see. I thought you were different. All Might, what do you mean by different? He asked, very confused. Izuku, remember this All Might, very soon there will be a person who will silence everyone and make you doubt the answer you just told me. After saying that, Izuku walked past All Might, who was surprised by those words, but when he turned around to see the young man, he was no longer there. At that, All Might remembered when his teacher Nanashimura had given him one for all, after he left the building. Chapter 6, See you soon, brother. Thus the 10 months passed with only 2 days left for the entrance exam for the UA. Izuku was training hard with Meliodas and Ban. Now Izuku was much faster and stronger. Izuku's speed had improved thanks to the fact that he always trained with weights on his feet. What they were training would be interrupted by a portal that had come out of nowhere. The portal was light blue. Meliodas and Ban would recognize that portal. Meliodas, well, I guess it's time to go back. Izuku, come back? Will you return to your dimension? Ban, sooner or later we had to come back, kid. Meliodas would approach Izuku and say, Hey Izuku, to me you are a brother. I am glad to have seen you grow and to have trained you, little brother. I was finally able to do something right, he said while showing a smile that reflected a bit of sadness. Before I go I will give you this. Izuku, give me what? Suddenly Meliodas would create a sphere of darkness which was taking the shape of a sword, then the darkness disappeared, revealing a replica of his sacred treasure Lost Vein, with the difference that this one was a little longer than the design was the same. Izuku, is that sword really for me? Meliodas, yes, it's for you. It's my gift for my little brother. I made it the same as mine, since you really liked my sword. That's what you told me when you were 7 years old. Do you remember? Izuku, of course, your sword is still cool. Melodies, come on, take it, it's all yours, he said with a smile. Ban, well kid, I guess this is goodbye. Remember, you have to show those idiots what you are capable of. Show them the results of your training. Izuku, yes master, I will. Ben would cross the portal. Meliodas, before crossing the portal, would turn around and say, I'm very proud of you, little brother. Never forget who you are. Above all, always show that smile that you gave me and Ben so much. Show them who you are, Izuku. After saying that he would cross the portal, Izuku would only have a couple of tears in his eyes. They were his family, and now they were gone, but at that moment Izuku said to himself, "Master Brother Ban, I promise I won't fail you." Well, now that I got the house, I guess it will be weird not hearing Ban and my brother's voice when they fought. He would just laugh as he remembered everything that had happened with them. On the other hand, Ban and Meliodas would appear in the boar hat. Ban would just have a sad look. "Meliodas, Ban, are you okay?" "Ban, of course, Captain. Why do you ask?" "Meliodas, come on, Ban, you don't have to lie to me. I know you loved Izuku very much, you loved him like a son." "Ban, it's true that every time I saw him I remembered my father Zhivago. He always took care of me like his own son. And when I met Izuku I understood what it's like to love someone as if they were your own son." "Meliodas, I will miss him too, he is like my brother, right? In fact, I consider him like my little brother. We trained him well, his speed is comparable to that of Zeldris. I assure you that he will be the best hero that exists." "Ban, yes, you're right, best friend, and that doctor was wrong about whether he had a quirk." "Meliodas, if you're right, I noticed at that time." Returning to the green-haired boy, he was training with the sword that his brother Meliodas had given him. He was practicing his speed more and more. "Izuku, wow, this sword has a great edge. I have to keep training so that when they come back I can finally beat them," he said with a big smile. Meanwhile, a dark-haired girl would be thinking about a certain green-haired man she met, and the kiss he had given her. "Momo, why didn't I ask for his cell phone number? Why can't I stop thinking about him? This feeling I have, well, now I have to think about tomorrow finally being the day to take the entrance exam for the UA Academy. Thank goodness my parents let me take it." Flashback. Since Momo had been saved long ago by Izuku, she had trained more and more to become stronger, and she wanted to show her parents how strong she had become. By taking the entrance exam. Her parents wanted to have her enter by recommendation, but Momo asked them not to do it, and that she would enter with her own efforts. End of flashback. Returning to Izuku, he would find his shirt destroyed and his body extremely exhausted. "Izuku, damn, this technique throws me out a lot. I still haven't mastered it well, haha. Well, tomorrow will finally be the big day. I will show you that a Quirks can be a great hero," he said with a big smile and a look full of determination. So one day he had passed, and finally Izuku found himself in front of the doors where the entrance exam would take place. "Izuku, the day has finally arrived." He was about to head towards the front door, but a voice stopped him. "Deku, is that you?" Izuku easily recognized that voice as he turned around to find the person who was once his best childhood friend. Izuku, with a cold and serious voice, said, "Hello, Miss Katsumi Bakuga." After saying that, Izuku turned around and walked inside. Katsumi would be speechless since Deku always called her Kaken, but now it was different. Her tone of voice was very distant from the Deku she knew. The blonde felt bad about everything she had said and done to Deku when they were children. She wanted to apologize, but she didn't know how. Well, then everything would happen like in the original story, the explanation of the points by present mic, with the difference that Izuku would not have murmured during the explanation. Note: Izuku didn't have that fearful attitude, nor would he be shy. End of note. Now all the applicants were in front of a large door which had opened, and Izuku would quickly enter at great speed. Present mic, what are you waiting for? A hero has no countdown. Everyone would enter, but their surprise would be great when they saw that several robots had been destroyed in a matter of seconds. Izuku would be jumping on buildings looking for robots with high scores. This one already had 135 points. In another area he would find an explosive blonde who screamed, "Shiny!" It was Katsumi Bakugu. We can also see a freckled girl with green hair and eyes. It was Izuku Midorya. She was using her pyrokinesis to destroy the robots. Further ahead, in an area where there were a large number of robots, there was a black-haired woman with a sword in her hand, which was very sharp. You could see a lot of robots cut with great precision. Momo, well, I already have enough points to pass, but I have to be the first, so I have to keep going. Meanwhile, In an observation room, there would be several professional heroes who were watching the performance of the new hero aspirants. One of them would say, "Well, everyone is doing a great job, but it's time for the real test," he said while pressing a button. Suddenly, where the hero aspirants were, a large robot would appear. This was the one worth 0 points. All the aspirants began to run away from the robot. Izuku, who would be on the roof of a building, would look at the whole scene saying, "Wow, the UE is a little crazy." Momo would be in front of the robot and would say, "It's too big, it won't give me time to create a weapon to attack." She would start to run, but a piece of debris that had been sent flying would hit her hard in the left leg, causing the brunette to fall. She was in a little pain and tried to stand up, but she couldn't, since the blow had been quite strong. The robot was about to crush her. Momo would only close her eyes, waiting for the worst. The robot's hand crushed the place where the raven was. All the candidates looked with fear at what had happened. They felt bad for not having been able to help the girl. A large curtain of dust appeared. Chapter 7: The Entrance Exam. As the curtain of dust disappeared, the robot would raise its hand, but everyone was greatly surprised to see that the brunette was not there. Momo would open her eyes and see that she was in the arms of a certain green-haired boy, who were at a great height. "Izuku, wow, I was able to save such a beautiful princess from that terrible robot," he said while showing a smile. "Momo, Izuku-kun." She would give Izuku a blushing hug, but would realize that they were suspended in the air. She would look down and see the giant robot. Izuku would land on the roof of a building. "Izuku, sorry, but I borrowed your katana." After saying that, the robot fell into 1,000 pieces. Momo would look at this in amazement, saying, But how?" Izuku would return the katana to Momo. At that moment, President Mike would say, "The exam is over." Everyone was stunned to see what had happened. Izumi would have seen the boy saying, "It just can't be." "That's Izuku," he would say with tears in his eyes. Suddenly a voice coming from behind her said, "Yes, that's Deku." Izumi turned around and saw that it was Katsumi. "Katsumi, but I don't understand how the hell he did it." In the observation room, everyone would be open-mouthed at what they had seen. All Might would say, "I've seen that boy's movements before, but where?" he asked himself. Izuku, who was with Momo, would say, "Well, Miss Yayorozu, it will be time for us to get down from here." "Momo, tell me, Momo." Izuku, "Sorry, what?" "Momo, you can call me Momo," she would say with a slight blush. Izuku, "It's okay, Miss Momo." The green-haired man would carry the raven-haired girl like a princess and take a big leap, landing on the ground. He would head to where everyone was, since he saw that Revolvery girl was there. Momo would be blushing, but at the same time happy, because the boy who made her felt an endless number of things in her heart was next to her. Reviver girl would heal Momo, but she would feel very tired since Recovery girl took some of her energy to heal her. Izuku would gently lower her, saying, "Well, see you, Miss Momo." He would proceed to withdraw, but Momo would stop him, saying, "Izuku, please don't go." "Izuku, what's wrong, Miss Momo?" "Momo, I was wondering if you'd like to exchange cell phone numbers." "Izuku, of course," he would say with a smile. Momo would be so happy that she would give him a hug. Izumi would see all that and would be a little jealous that another girl hugged her brother. Katsumi would just watch the scene, saying in a low voice, "Wow, Deku, I'm so happy for you." After saying that, Izumi would leave and approach where Izuku and Momo were. "Izumi, little brother, I'm glad to see you again." Izuku would recognize that voice. Momo would let go of Izuku. "Izuku, hello Miss Izumi, how have you been?" Izumi would have tears in her eyes and she would try to hug him, but Izuku would dodge her. Izumi, with a sad voice, would ask, "Why did you avoid me?" Izuku, "I'm sorry, but the only girl who can hug me is Miss Momo." Momo would be blushing at those words. Izumi was going to say something, but Present Mike would say, "Well, young people, you can leave. In a week, we will let you know the results." Izuku and Momo would go out together, leaving Izumi alone. Momo would be picked up by a slime. Izuku, "Well, Miss Momo, we will see each other." Momo, yes, she would say with a smile. Izuku would turn around and start walking away. Momo would grab her chest and say, Izuku, wait. Izuku would quickly turn around and receive a kiss on the lips from Momo, who was blushing heavily. Momo, this is for saving me today. After saying that, she got into the limousine blushing a lot. Izuku would see how the limousine drove away. Izuku, damn, why do I feel all this? Momo was riding in a limousine saying, Izuku Baka, why did you turn around quickly? I wanted to kiss you on the cheek, but I'm glad my first kiss was with you. Driver, Miss Momo, I swear that not a single word will come out of my lips about what I just saw. Momo, thanks. So the days would pass and Izuku would receive the results of the entrance test. He would have obtained the highest score in the exam against the robots, passing with a score of 195. Izuku would be so happy that he would shed a couple of tears. At last the dream he wanted so much as a child was coming true. Izuku, brother, Master Ban, I did it, I passed the test thanks to you. At Momo's house she would be happy because she had passed the exam with 150 points. Momo, yes, I did it. Her parents hugged her tightly saying, We are very proud of you, daughter. Momo would just show a big smile of happiness. Chapter 8, First Day at the Academy. This is how the first day of classes at UA began. Izuku would be standing at the entrance door and would head to his course when suddenly he was hugged from behind. Izuku would look sideways, seeing a brunette hugging him. Momo, Izuku-kun, I'm glad you came. Izuku, thank you, Miss Momo. I'm also happy to see you, he said, blushing a little. Momo remembered the kiss from last time, blushing and letting go of Izuku. Momo, well, what class are you in? Izuku, well, I'm in class 1A. And you? Momo, I'm also in the same class. Izuku, I'm glad, so I can spend more time with you. Momo would only be a little blushed. Both would go to the course that corresponded to them. Upon entering, they would see a blue-haired man with glasses who was fighting with a blonde with an aggressive character. The blue-haired boy would see Izuku and go to greet him saying, You are the one who discovered the true purpose of the entrance exam. My name is Tenya Ida. Izuku, nice to meet you, my name is Izuku. A voice coming from behind Izuku said, Oni-chan, I'm glad you came in and that we're in the same class. Izuku would turn around and see Izumi, who would try to hug him. The green-haired man would again dodge her, saying, I already told you, Miss Izumi, the only girl who can hug me is Miss Momo. Everyone in the class would be surprised by such words. Momo, for her part, would be blushing slightly. Izumi, somewhat angry, would say, Why only her? Is she your girlfriend? Momo blushed even more when she heard the word girlfriend, and there was complete silence in the class. Everyone wanted to know the green-haired boy's answer. Izuku would take a deep breath. Momo would be about to speak, but Izuku would interrupt her, saying, Is there any problem with her being my girlfriend? Izumi would be surprised. All the girls in the room shouted, KYYYYYA. Except for Katsumi and a bicolor. Izuku would take Momo by the hand and they would head to sit in their seats. A redhead would say, That's for men. A blonde and a dwarf with purple balls on his head would look at Izuku with hatred, saying, Damn freckled broccoli. How did he end up with a beauty like Yayorozu? At that moment the door of the room would open and a kind of yellow caterpillar would crawl in. Everyone would look at the scene with a drop of sweat. The caterpillar would stop and Kaminari would say, Ah, a caterpillar with a human face. At that point he would receive a strong blow from Jiru. At that point a person came out of the caterpillar saying, My name is Shoyuta Aizawa and I will be your teacher. Now everyone put on your training suits and go to the field. I'll wait for you there. Everything would happen as in the original story. They would do the physical tests and Izuku would come first in all of them. Then the time would come to throw the ball. Aizawa, Izuku, since you were the one with the highest score on the entrance test, you will go first. Everyone would look at the green-haired boy in amazement. Momo would be amazed even though she knew Izuku was strong. Izuku would stand in the middle of the circle to throw the ball. Aizawa, try to use your quirk to reach a longer distance. Izumi would quietly say. But Izuku doesn't have a quirk. These words were heard by Momo. Katsumi also knew it. Izuku would concentrate, remembering what his brother Meliodas had told him. Flashback. Izuku would be fighting against Meliodas. Izuku, damn it. I'm not as strong and fast as your brother. I would say something sad. You are amazing. Meliodas, listen Izuku, it doesn't matter if you have a quirk or not. With hard training you could surpass my speed and even my strength, he said, showing a smile. Izuku, are you serious? Meliodas, yes. Look at Ban, he used to be just a normal human, and you've seen his strength for yourself. It's all about having great determination and concentration. You have to break the limits of your body. You must transmit all your strength to a single point when you are about to carry out an attack. A quirk is just something extra, it's just something that enhances what you already have. End of flashback. Izuku would open his eyes with great determination, saying, I will show them what I am capable of, he said to himself in his thoughts. He would throw the ball with all his strength, creating a small crater beneath it due to the force applied. A small taste of wind was expelled at the same time Izuku threw the ball. Aizawa and everyone else would be surprised. The ball would fall, Aizawa would look at his phone and the scoreboard would say 840 meters. A brown film would say, made a new record. A muscular blonde would be spying on Izuku saying, what the hell, young man? That was amazing, you would be a great vessel for the one for all, I would say quietly. Aizawa, wow boy, you reached great heights with your quirk. Izuku, you're wrong sensei, I didn't use my quirk, he said this with his head down. Returning to the rest of the class, Momo would approach Izuku saying, Izuku-kun, you are amazing, he said with a big smile. Izumi and Katsumi were surprised as far as they knew Izuku didn't have any quirk. Aizawa had been thinking about Izuku's words. That way everyone would pass the test. Izuku had come in second place since a certain brunette had reached an infinite height. After that came class with all might, hero practices like in the original story. Everyone would be in their costumes. Izumi would wear a costume like Izuku's in the third season. Izuku was wearing the same outfit that Meliodas wore when he was the leader of the 10 Commandments. Well, it was a pretty familiar one. Izumi would approach Izuku asking, Oni-chan, how do I look? Izuku, you look good, Miss Izumi. Then Momo would appear in her suit. Izuku would blush when he saw her. The somewhat shy brunette asked, how do I look at Izuku-kun? Izuku, you look very beautiful, he said somewhat blushing. Momo, blushing a little, would say, thanks. Mineta would look at Momo with lust. Izuku would notice and give him a murderous look. Mineta, who at that moment felt true terror. Everything would be like in the original story, the heroes versus the villains. The first two teams would be Momo Yaoyorozu and Shota Todoroki as the heroes. And the villains would be Katsumi Bakugo and Izuku. Chapter 9, Heroes vs. Villains, the practice of heroes. Momo and Shota would be in front of a building. The practice consisted of recovering the bomb or capturing the villains. Momo would be a little nervous since she had Izuku as an opponent. The brunette knew that the freckled boy was strong. Shota, we'll win this fast, we'll freeze the whole building. Momo, are you sure this is a good plan? Shota, of course, I can't afford to lose. Meanwhile, Izuku and Katsumi would be inside the building guarding the bomb. It is worth mentioning that there was a deathly silence in the place. Katsumi, Izuku, I am really sorry. I'm truly sorry for everything I did to you before. I'm not asking you to forgive me, I just want you to know that I feel bad. When I found out that you had left your house, I felt really bad about myself. I thought it was my fault. Izuku would only be with his back turned, small tears falling from Katsumi's eyes. Katsumi would have her head down but felt a hand caressing her hair. She would look up, meeting the green-haired man's emerald eyes. Izuku, I didn't know you had such a tender side, Kaken. Katsumi would blush a little, but a vein on her forehead appeared, saying, who are you calling sweet? Damn freckled broccoli. Izuku would just show a smile saying, "Well, it's time for us to be villains." Katsumi, "It's true we won't lose." Izuku, "Of course, because I have you on my team." Kaken with a slight blush would say, "Of course, Deku, you're lucky you got to be with me." Izuku would raise his hand, forming a fist. Katsumi would see this and fist bump. "Izuku, when I tell you now, we'll jump at the same time." Katsumi, "It's okay, Deku." They would start to go down the 4th floor. At that point, All Might would say over the intercoms, "Begin." Momo and Shota entered the building. The bicolor began to freeze the entire building. The ice was reaching the 4th floor. Izuku, now Kaken. Both of them would take a great leap into the air. The ice passed by, freezing everything. In the room where All Might was with the rest of the students, they were amazed to see how the entire building was frozen. But they would be more amazed to see how Izuku and Katsumi had dodged the attack. Izuku and Katsumi would fall to the ground. Izuku, "Wow, that was too close." Katsumi, "Hey Deku, how did you know she was going to do that?" Izuku, "Because I once saw his quirk, and it's also a good plan to freeze everything, but we have the advantage of knowing the enemy." Katsumi, "I'll take care of the 2-color one." Izuku, "And I'm Momo." They would begin to run down at high speed towards the 1st floor, the whole place emanating a cold vapor. "Momo, don't you think you went a little too far?" she said while hugging herself because of the cold. Shota, "I think so." "Well, that doesn't matter, let's go for the bomb, they must be frozen from my attack." They both started walking but immediately took a big leap back because before turning the corner of the hallway an explosion occurred. I would come out screaming. Shiny. Charging a strong explosion in hand, Shota would create a large pillar of ice counterattacking. The blonde would make the ice explode, creating a large curtain of steam. The bicolor would quickly attack again with pillars of ice, but a large explosive attack would come out of the curtain of steam, destroying Shota's pillars. Momo would create a rod of harrow that could be divided into 2, and at the tips it had enough electricity to knock a person unconscious. Momo would launch herself towards the steam curtain shouting, "Cover me, Shota." The bicolor would quickly turn on her fire side and run with Momo entering the steam curtain. Both would go through it, but they would get a big surprise when they see Katsumi with her grenade glove. She would smile, saying, "They fell into the trap." Pulling the trigger on her glove, sending out a large explosion, Momo would quickly create a shield while Todoroki would create a wall of ice. The explosion would be very strong. Everyone in the class would be very surprised. Shota could stand up, saying, "Momo, are you ready to attack?" Not hearing an answer, she would turn around and would be very surprised to see the unconscious brunette next to her was Izuku. Shota, but at what moment? She remembered Katsumi's words. They fell into the trap. Izuku, never take your eyes off your enemy. She quickly turned to see Katsumi, who was in the air, spinning around and hitting her with a big kick in the face, knocking her out. "Katsumi, we did it, Deku," he said while fist bumping the green-haired man. "All Might, the villains win." I would say impressed to see the strategy that the 2 young men had put together to win. The whole class would be impressed since they had beaten Shota, the girl who had entered by recommendation. On the cameras you could see Izuku carrying Momo and Katsumi carrying Shota, who were taken to the infirmary. A green-haired girl would say, "Little brother, you are amazing." The next group that had passed was made up of Izuku Midorya and Ochako Uraraka as heroes. The villains would be Tokoyami and Jairu. The victory would be on the side of the heroes, and so the other groups would pass, finishing the heroes' practice. Izuku would quickly go to the infirmary to see Momo, who was already awake and somewhat upset about having lost. Izuku would open the door to the infirmary. Momo would smile when she saw Izuku. "Izuku, how are you, Momo?" "Momo, I'm fine, but I'm upset with myself for losing." "Izuku, haha, you don't have to be upset about defeats, you learn." At that point a bicolor interrupted, saying, "Congratulations on winning, your strategy was amazing." "Izuku, thank you very much, Miss Todoroki." "Shota, next time I won't lose." After saying this he left the infirmary. "Momo, now we have English classes, we should go to the classroom. Izuku, if you're right. Momo would stand up, they would both go to their course. Upon entering, they all cornered Izuku, saying, "You were amazing in the practice class." A pink hair like her skin would say, "I'm Mina Ishido." A red-haired boy would say, "I'm Kirishima." So the whole class presented themselves before Izuku. Kirishima, wow Izuku, you are quite the man. You looked great when you were carrying your girlfriend Miss Yaoyorozu after you won. Momo would be blushing, the green-haired boy would be about to speak when President Mike would come in to give the class. Izuku in his thoughts would say, "Thank you sensei, you saved me." Thus ended the first day of school for everyone. Izuku would be collecting his things to leave the classroom. Momo would approach him saying, "See you Izuku-kun." She would approach Izuku giving him a kiss on the cheek. Izuku would just laugh saying, "I thought you would give me that kiss again." Momo clearly knew what Izuku was talking about and she would say, "Baka." Izuku would be about to say something but Momo would say in a low voice, "But if you want I can give you another one." Izuku would have heard that and approached Momo, gently taking her by the chin and giving Momo a kiss on the lips, who would be surprised and blushing. Izuku would separate from the kiss somewhat blushing saying, "Now we're even." Momo blushed a lot and looked down, whispering, "Another one." "Izuku, what did you say?" "Momo, give me one more kiss." Izuku and Momo would get closer again, kissing each other with such passion. Izuku would have his hands on Momo's waist, and she would have her hands around the freckled boy's neck. They both separated very blushed. Momo was about to speak but would be interrupted by a white-furred rodent who was wearing an elegant suit. It was Director Nizu. Both young people separated. "Nizu, wow, today's youth is cute," he would say this with a big smile. "Young Izuku, could you accompany me to my office?" Izuku, yes, of course, Director. "Nizu, don't worry, your secret is safe with me. I won't say anything about what I saw today." Momo blushing would say, Thank you, Director Nizu." The brunette would say goodbye to Izuku and leave the place very sad. Izuku would escort Nizu to his office. "Nizu, please take a seat, young man." Izuku, "Thank you very much." "Nizu, young man, do you know why I brought you here?" Izuku very sorry replied. It was for having kissed Miss Momo inside the institution. "Nizu, no, of course not. The reason I brought him is another. I want to ask you a question." Izuku, I see. "Tell me, what is your question?" Chapter 10, Memories of the Past. "Nizu, young man, on your registration form you put only your first name but not your last name. Why did he do that?" There would be silence throughout the room. Izuku would have his head down. Nizu would notice Izuku's change and he would say, "Excuse me, young man, it seems that question was something very personal." Izuku, "No, don't apologize, Director Nizu. The reason I put my last name is because I don't have one." Nizu would look at Izuku in amazement, so he would ask, "What do you mean you don't have a last name? Don't you have a father or are you an orphan?" Everything his parents did to him went through Izuku's head. He remembered his father's words. He told him, "You are not a Midoriya. You do not belong to this family." Izuku, I don't have parents. My parents abandoned me." Nizu felt a little bad when he heard those words. It wasn't his intention to make the young man feel bad. "Nizu, I see. Forgive me for reminding you of something like that." "Izuku, it's okay." He would say this with a smile. Obviously it was a smile that hid a deep pain. Nizu would notice all that and he would also notice something in Izuku that no one else apart from Meliodas and Ban had noticed. "Nizu, another question, young man. The part where you had to say what your quirk was blank. Why didn't you post an answer?" Izuku was hesitating about answering. He thought that if he said he didn't have a quirk he would be expelled from the academy. Nizu would notice how nervous Izuku was about what he would say. "The reason is very simple, isn't it? It's because you don't have a quirk." Izuku would open his eyes wide looking at Nizu, who would only give a gentle smile saying, This will be our secret. Show them that you will be the best hero with or without a quirk. I also saw how you saved Miss Yayorozu in the entrance exam. That speed and swordplay was amazing. Don't worry, I won't tell anyone about this. I, the director of the UA, will personally take care of managing all your paperwork. Izuku had a big smile that reflected enormous happiness, and he would ask, "Why are you doing all this?" "Nizu, young man, I took it upon myself to find out everything about your past. I know that you are the son of Hisashi Midorya and Inko Midorya. I also know that Miss Izumi is your sister. Obviously they are twins. I know what they did to you. The moment I found out about everything, rage ran through my body. I know very well what it feels like to be treated badly and left to your own fate." "Izuku, thank you very much, Principal Nizu. Nizu, you can retire young and show the world what you are capable of." "Izuku, yes, Director." After saying that, he would leave the office, leaving Nizu alone. "Nizu, that boy will be the greatest hero ever." Izuku would go to his house. It was a little far from school, but it was not a problem for the green-haired man since he was jumping from building to building. All the way Izuku was thinking about the kiss he had given Momo, blushing more and more. On the other hand, a certain dark-haired girl would come out of the shower and throw herself on the bed, covering her face with a pillow, remembering the kiss the green-haired boy had given her. Momo would be very blushing and would say, "I want to feel his lips again, I want to hug him all the time." This one would ask, "Does that mean we're a couple?" She turned very red, saying, "No, of course we don't just get carried away by the moment, but tomorrow I will tell him and ask him to be my boyfriend." Izuku would arrive home, take a bath and put on the suit he wore to go out hunting villains at night. For the green-haired boy it was already a habit. He put on his mask, took his sword, placed it on his back and set off to hunt villains. Eraserhead was in a building guarding the city when suddenly in the center of the city several screams would be heard. He would quickly go to see what was happening. When he arrived he found a couple of villains who were throwing cars against the buildings. Eraserhead would see with surprise the fire hero Endeavor. He would be accompanied by his daughter Todoroki. One of the villains would be fighting against him and his daughter. He had the ability to control iron. In a moment of carelessness Endeavor would be tied up by a piece of iron. Eraserhead would try to help Endeavor, but he would be attacked by the other villain who was about 1.35 meters tall. He had great muscles like All Might. He would attack Eraserhead, which would erase his quirk, but he would be in for a big surprise when he saw that he did not have a quirk. Eraserhead would dodge the subject's blows. Although he did not have a quirk, he was fast, and his blows they were very strong. Shota was about to help her father but attacked by iron thorns created by the villain in front of her. The bicolor would be taken by surprise. She would create pillars of ice as a shield, but it was useless. The thorns easily pierced her defense. She would close her eyes waiting for the worst. Endeavor would try to burn the iron to free himself, but the villain would say, "My quirk allows me to control iron, mold it to my liking and above all make it 50 times stronger than normal. In order to break them you would have to raise your fire quite a bit, but you won't be able to do that. Look around you. There are civilians you can hurt." Endeavor knew it was true. The iron thorns were about to pierce Shota when a small sound was heard. Everyone would look on in amazement as the thorns were cut into several pieces. "Villain, but what happened?" Shota would open her eyes and see a hooded man in front of her. "Villain, who the hell are you?" "Hooded, I am your worst nightmare." Chapter 11, Night Hero? He would start running quickly towards the villain, who would create a gigantic iron thorn by throwing it at the hooded man, who would take his sword out of its sheath a little and put it back in. The large thorn would be cut into several parts. Izuku would be in front of the villain. The green-haired man would give him a strong kick in the face, knocking him out. Izuku would walk to where Endeavor was, who would look at him impressed. The green-haired man would destroy the iron that surrounded Endeavor with a single cut. Shota would look impressed at how easily he finished off the villain, and how he freed his father. Eraserhead would have defeated the other subject with some difficulty. He would see the hooded man saying, "I knew you were coming." "Hooded, what can I say? You already know me." Endeavor, Eraserhead, do you know him? Eraserhead, yes, well, something like that. Hooded, well, see you. He would take a great leap and land on the roof of a building, thus disappearing from everyone's sight. Shota, Dad, are you okay? Endeavor, yes, daughter, I'm fine. That boy seemed to be your age from his voice. Next time I see him, I will thank him for saving you. The green-haired boy would arrive home somewhat tired and would lie down in his bed and fall completely asleep. The next day his alarm would ring. Izuku, well, I have to get up. He would take a shower and then have breakfast and leave in his uniform heading to the UA. Izuku was arriving at school, but a very beautiful light blue-haired girl approached him and asked, Hey, how did you defeat the 0-point robot? What's your quirk? Why do you want to be a hero? Have you had those freckles since you were born? Izuku would have a drop of sweat anime style. A blonde with a big smile said, Leave it alone, Nijire, you're scaring him. Nijire, sorry, I can't help it. The blonde would say, I'm Mirio Togata. She is Nijire Hato and the boy next to me is Tamaki Amaiki. Izuku, wow, but they are the big three. Mirio, do you know us? Have I asked excitedly? Izuku, yes, at the academy they talk a lot about you. Note. Here the big three would be second years, so they would be 1 year older than Izuku. End of note. Izuku, sorry, I didn't introduce myself. My name is Izuku, nice to meet you. Nijire, nice to meet you, Izuku, she would say with a beautiful smile, while being very close to the green-haired man. Izuku would blush a little. This would be noticed by Nijire, who would put on a mischievous smile asking, Why are you blushing? Izuku, well, it would be impossible not to, you are very pretty, any boy would blush if he had you so close. Nijire would now be the one blushing. Mirio, Izuku, what a gentleman. Nijire would lower her head hiding her blush and ask, Do you really think I'm pretty? Izuku, of course, Miss Hato, your blue hair and your eyes make you look very beautiful. I would like to see you under the moonlight, I bet you would look much more beautiful. Nijire would be blushing beyond belief. Izuku, well, see you later, I'll be late for class. I promise that I'll answer all your questions at lunchtime, miss. The green-haired boy would run away. Mirio, wow, what an energetic boy. Tamaki, how can he talk to people so calmly? That's scary. The black-haired man would say, shrugging his shoulders. Mirio, we better go too, Nijire. Nijire would still be blushing. The green man's words had made her heart race. Mirio with a smile would say, Come on, don't tell me you fell in love. Nijire, what are you saying? She would say very nervously. Tamaki would take out his phone saying, Hello, I'm connected to the UN. This is Agent Tamaki speaking. I want to report a certain girl. At that point he would be hit by a wave of Nijire, leaving poor Tamaki on the ground in pain. Mirio just laughed at that scene. Chapter 12, The Big Three vs. Class 1A Part 1. So the Big Three summarized their course to the UA. Nijire could only think about the green-haired Mirio would see his friend and would only say in a low voice, Wow, the boy really made her fall in love with him, haha. Izuku would arrive at his classroom just in time. This way the first hours would pass while his homeroom teacher would speak. Aizawa, guys, due to personal matters, All Might will not be able to teach you his class today. Everyone would be sad. Obviously they wanted to do hero practices since the other classes were boring. Aizawa, let me finish talking. Everyone would be silent. Aizawa, instead, a substitute teacher will assist them. Please welcome Hisashi Midorya, the number 3 hero. Everyone would be surprised since Hisashi Midorya was one of the best heroes. Izuku, upon hearing that name, only made an annoyed face, turning his face to look at the window. This action would be noticed by a black-haired girl and a green-haired girl, who became somewhat sad upon seeing such a reaction. Hisashi Midorya would enter the room saying, Good morning, guys, it's a pleasure to show you the future heroes of tomorrow. He would look at all the boys, but his eyes would open wide when he saw the green-haired boy, who with a few tears would say, Izuku, is that you? Everyone looked at their teacher. Izuku, without stopping looking at the window, said, I'm sorry, sensei, you have the wrong person. Everyone had heard those cold and emotionless words. Momo was the most surprised. Hisashi lowered his gaze somewhat sadly, saying, "Ah, I see. Sorry, I confused you with someone else. Well, today we will do combat practices. Today the three big ones will do us the honor of accompanying us in this practice. Come in, guys." At that moment the door to the living room would open and everyone saw the big three enter. Nijire had captured the gaze of all the boys in the class except Izuku, who was still looking at the window. Nijire would see Izuku and quickly go to where he was. "Nijire. Hi Izuku-kun, I didn't think I'd see you again so soon," she would say with a big smile. Two people in particular did not like this action at all. Mineta, damn freckled broccoli. It was not enough for him to have Momo, he also has the senpai. Izuku would turn his gaze seeing Nijire, who was very close. "Izuku, hello Miss Hato." "Nijire, you can just call me Nijire," she said blushing. "Izuku, it's okay, Miss Nijire." Mirio would make a fake cough saying, "Nijire, please concentrate." Nijire, "Oh yeah, sorry, see you later Izuku-kun." "Izuku, it's okay," he would say with a smile. At that moment Izuku felt a great fear that ran through his entire body. He would turn around and see Momo, who had an aura that even All Might himself would fear. Izumi, on the other hand, would have a fireball in her hand and would say, "Wow, Oni-chan, the women really follow you," he would say with a voice from beyond the grave. "Izuku, that's a pain in the ass." "Mirio, my name is Mirio Togata. The lady next to me is Nijire Hato, and the black-haired boy is Tamaki Amaiki." Everyone will feel great pressure when they feel the gaze of the black-haired man. He seemed to be concentrating suddenly. He turned around while trembling, saying, "I'm sorry boy B, but I can't. No matter how hard I try to imagine that they are potatoes, everything except their heads are human, my mind is blank and I want to leave." Everyone watched this with a drop of sweat. Hisashi, "Okay guys, put on your hero outfits, we'll wait for you in the gym." Everyone would be nodding their heads in the men's locker room. Everyone would be changing. Mineta, "Hey guys, look what I found. This must be a legacy from our ancestors. Through this hole we'll be able to watch the girls while they get changed. I already want to see Yayorosa's body," I would say this with lust. "Or maybe Izumi has a good body." Before he could finish speaking he would feel a murderous look coming from behind him. "Izuku, if you want to stay alive, I suggest you get changed and get out of here." Mineta would do what Izuku had said without saying a single word. "Kirishima, now that's for men. You protect Miss Yayorosa at all costs." Izuku, blushing, would say, "Of course she is someone special to me." In the girls' locker room, Momo would be blushing since she had heard such words. "Jairu, wow Momo, I'm so jealous, your boyfriend loves you so much. You were lucky girl, it's obvious that you stole his heart." Momo, blushing quite a bit, would say, Thanks." Within a few minutes everyone would be in the gym. Aizawa would be next to Hisashi. Nijire couldn't stop looking at the freckled boy in his suit. "Mirio, Nijire at least pretends a little." Nijire, "As sorry," she said, quite embarrassed. Momo would look at the light blue-haired girl with annoyance. Hisashi, "Well, since there are 21 in the class, they will be divided into two groups, one of 11 and the other of 10. As you can see, the big three will be the villains. To pass this practice, they will have to work as a team. Mirio will be the boss of the villains. On his head he will have a ribbon which they will have to remove to win. After finishing the tests they will give you advice to improve your quirks." Everyone would be very excited. Nijire would approach Izuku saying, "I expect a lot from you Izuku-kun. I won't be nice just because it's you." "Izuku, you don't have to worry senpai, they won't beat us that easily, right Kaken?" Katsumi would approach Izuku saying, "Of course Deku, we will beat them up." He said this while bumping his fist with the green-haired man's. Nijire, "Wow, that's really having confidence in your partner. Come with everything," the light blue-haired girl would say. Hisashi, "You will have 3 minutes to win, understood? Now you will have 1 minute to organize yourselves." Izuku's group consisted of Momo, Jairu, Kaminari, Mineta, Toru, Uraraka, Shiro, Katsumi, Tsuyu, and with Izuku completed the 10. The rest were from the other group. The first group to pass was Izuku's. Hisashi in his thoughts would say, I wonder how Izuku managed to get in. The doctor said he didn't have a quirk. Or maybe he was wrong, maybe Izuku did have a quirk. Chapter 13. The Big Three vs. Class 1A Part 02. Aizawa just looked attentively at his children. The second group was attentive to what was going to happen. Mirio would have a smile. Nijire just looked at the green-haired man with a challenging look. Izumi just looked at Izuku and in a low voice would say, I'll finally be able to see Oni-chan fight. Mina, this is exciting. I wonder which side will win. Shota, we have 3 great opponents. The closest to being professional heroes will be difficult to beat. Hisashi, begin. Mirio at high speed would activate his quirk, which was penetration. This allows him to pass through any object. Izuku, I knew it. Now Jiru. This would quickly connect its jacks to the ground, sending waves of vibration underground, destroying the terrain in one direction. Aizawa would be impressed by the quick reaction of his students. Due to the waves caused by Jiru, Mirio had to get off the ground. In that a smoke bomb would cover the whole place. The bomb was created by Momo. The big 3 were surprised. Aizawa, blocking your enemy's field of vision really surprises me. Nijire would float out of the smoke screen, but a long tongue grabbed her foot, pulling her with great force to the ground. Nijire would send a wave of energy towards where the tongue came from, causing it to release its tongue. Tamaki would have a pair of wings on his back. His left arm was an octopus tentacle, and the other was a crab claw. With his wings he would have dispersed the smoke screen, but he was in for a big surprise when he saw that Kaminari was in front of him. Kaminari's fist was surrounded by electricity. It would hit Tamaki in the stomach, giving him a strong shock. The black-haired man would take a few steps back, but would see how Kaminari took a big leap back while saying, Now Bakugu. Tamaki would look at Katsumi, who would be with her grenade glove, and would say, Shiny. Pulling the trigger on his glove, sending out a huge explosion, Tamaki tried to move, but his feet were stuck to the ground. Much of the ground was covered by Mineta's balls. He tried to cover himself with his arms, but they were both captured by some ribbons. Shiro, you won't be able to escape, he said while holding his right arm with his ribbons, and on the other side would be Uraraka. Tamaki would receive the full explosion and would be sent flying, crashing into the gym wall and being out of combat. Nijire, who was floating, had seen such a scene and was impressed, but a voice brought her out of her astonishment. Voice, where are you looking? Nijire would quickly turn to look but would not see anyone, but would receive a hammer blow, falling to the ground, but would quickly recover, landing gracefully. But as soon as she landed she had to dodge a couple of jacks from Jiru. She would grab Jiru by the jacks to attract her to her, but when she was about to do so her hands were held by a long tongue. Tsuyu, I got you, Jiro. In that Nijire would receive a strong blow from Momo. She would free herself with her waves, but Momo would say, Now Izuku-kun. A large taste of wind that moved everywhere passed by Nijire. The light blue film would be wrapped in Shiro's tapes. Izuku, I told you senpai we won't lose so easily. Nijire would be knocked out. Hisashi, what happened? That speed. Aizawa in his thoughts would say, Without a doubt it's you. Mirio would be fighting against Katsumi and Kaminari, who were in trouble because of Mirio's quirk. He punched everyone in the stomach while saying, Power. The boys fell to the ground holding on to their stomachs. Izuku and the rest attacked Mirio. Uraraka and Tsuya held Nijire so she couldn't escape. Mirio would beat up Jiru and Mineta. Mirio, they did impress me. At that the blonde received a strong blow to the stomach. Mirio, but what? He quickly remembered that there was a girl who could turn invisible. Mirio would take a big leap without realizing that Izuku was behind him. He would quickly kick Mirio in the ribs, which would take him by surprise. Mirio would be about to attack, but Hisashi would say, Time is up. Everyone had been impressed by the battle. Hisashi, the villain's GA. Izuku, you're wrong, sensei. The green-haired boy would raise his hand showing the ribbon. Mirio, but how? This one had a ribbon on his head that said they lost. Izuku, Momo's ability is very effective, especially when it comes to creating things, and Toru's almost imperceptible presence makes her almost impossible to find. Mirio, but when did they change it? Nijire, who would be tied by Siro's ribbons, would say. It was when they made the smoke screen, wasn't it, Izuku-kun? Izuku, right, I knew Mirio would be the first to act. Luckily on my team I have a good partner with a strong quirk. Jiraiya just needed to get you out. Jiraiya was blushing slightly. It was the first time someone told her that her quirk was strong. Izuku, in that Momo would take care of the smoke screen and Toru of changing the tapes. From the beginning he knew that Nijire would attack from above. That's why I told Uraraka to use her quirk on Toru. She would be in charge of sending Nijire to the ground. Nijire, so it was her. Mirio, so if they had already won before, why didn't they say so? Izuku, it's simple. Each of my teammates wanted to show what they are capable of, and what better than against the big three. Did I tell you or not, Nijire, we would not make things easy for them, he said while bumping his fist with Kaken's. Both would say. We did it. Izuku's entire group would be happy to have won. Aizawa, he alone put together the strategy, led the team, and was able to understand their emotions. This boy is. It's impressive, he said with a smile. The whole group would say. We won, Izuku. It was all thanks to your strategy. Izuku, you're wrong. My strategy would be nothing without you. I only won because I have good teammates on my team. Everyone would be happy at Izuku's words. Momo would hug Izuku saying, You're great. The green-haired man would reciprocate the hug saying, I told you once, everything is fine now. Why? Why am I here? Hisashi, you're amazing, Izuku. Izuku, the biggest advantage I had was knowing their quirks. With that little information I could create strategies to counterattack. It doesn't matter if you are considered almost a professional. If your opponent knows your weaknesses or how you handle your quirk, then you will be easy prey. These words left everyone surprised. The big three had been defeated. Mirio, I must admit that you are amazing. I couldn't see the moment when you stood behind me. Your quirk is speed, isn't it? Izuku, you're wrong. During the battle I didn't use my quirk. I got that speed through training. Everyone would be amazed. Izuku, also, if I had my sacred treasure, the battle would have ended quickly. Chapter 14, Declaration of Love. Hisashi would approach Izuku's group congratulating them for having won. Izuku did not give importance to that. Then it would be the other team's turn. They would have lost since they did not have a good strategy or coordination. The big three would give the second team advice on how they could improve their quirks. After finishing with them, they would go with Izuku's group, but none of the three could give them advice since they had been great during practice. Aizawa said the same thing, that they had done a good job. He would look at Izuku and say, Izuku, I want you to face me. They all shouted in unison. What? Izuku, okay, he said with a big smile. Hisashi, why do you want to face Izuku? Aizawa, I want to check something. Yayarozu, could you create a katana for Izuku? Momo would be surprised by the request, but she would accept. The brunette would create a very good katana with a great edge. This would give the katana to the green-haired man. Izuku would look at his teacher saying, Are you sure about this, sensei? Aizawa, of course. Both would be face to face. The entire class 1A would watch attentively what was going to happen. Izuku would have his gaze fixed on Aizawa. Hisashi, begin. Aizawa would quickly attack Izuku with his ribbons. Izuku would stand still a few centimeters from the ribbons touching him. He would put his left foot back, giving himself a great push forward, and in a single movement with his katana the ribbons would be cut into small pieces which floated in the air. Everyone would be speechless, since not even Ida with her speed could have seen the moment in which Izuku had moved the katana. Shota in his thoughts would say, That way of moving, was it perhaps you? That masked man? Izuku would be in front of Aizawa. The green-haired man would be suspended in the air. Quickly he would spin, sending a spinning kick to Aizawa's face. Aizawa barely managed to dodge it. Izuku would fall to the ground, putting his arms in an X shape since Aizawa had thrown a punch to his face with great force. Izuku would just look at Aizawa, saying in a low voice, "Now you know who I am, Eraserhead." Aizawa, so you knew of my intentions from the beginning? Izuku, of course. Aizawa, well, that's enough, we're done. Everyone would say. So fast? Aizawa, I just wanted to confirm something. Hisashi would be in amazement at the ease with which he had cut Aizawa's ribbons. Mirio, wow, that boy really is amazing. Nijire, that's my Izuku, she said in a low voice and somewhat blushed. Hisashi, well, that's all for today, you can return to the classroom. The boys would nod their heads. Before leaving, Nijire would approach Izuku saying, "See you at lunch, Izuku-kun, you promised me," he would say with a smile. Izuku, of course, Miss Nijire. The freckled man would give his smile in the protagonist style. Director Nizu would have watched the entire practice alongside a skeletal blonde. Nizu, that boy is really amazing. Don't you think so, Tashinori? Tashinori, of course, I've already decided, Director, that boy will be my successor. Nizu would just show a big smile saying. Although that boy could have really won, he just held back the whole time. Tashinori, is what Director Nizu says true? He asked in surprise. Nizu, of course, that boy is at the level of professional heroes. But if he continues training more, he will become the greatest hero of all time. He said this while looking at Izuku, who was just leaving with his classmates. That's how the other classes would pass until lunchtime came. Everyone would be leaving the class to go to the cafeteria. Izuku would be about to leave but would be stopped by a brunette who was holding his hand. She would say, somewhat blushing, "Izuku-kun, would you like to have lunch together?" He would say while playing with his fingers. Izuku, I'm sorry, Momo, I promised Miss Nijire that I would see her at lunchtime. Momo, you like her, right? She asked with a sad voice. Izuku, what are you saying? Momo, just answer me, you like her, right? She would say with a couple of tears in her eyes. Izuku would just hug her and say, Baka, I only like you. Momo would have a big blush on her face and she would say, Do you really like me? The brunette couldn't finish speaking since Izuku had given her a kiss on the lips. Momo would only continue the kiss like that for a few minutes and then they separated due to lack of air. Izuku, I only like you, you are the woman I love. Momo, I love you. Momo would be very blushing and at the same time happy for what she would say. I love you too, Izuku. Then he would give her a big kiss of passion. Both of them would separate from the kiss. Izuku, Momo W, will you be my girlfriend? Momo with a big smile would say. Yes, I definitely do want to be your girlfriend. Izuku would hug her tightly. The brunette would only reciprocate the hug. Izuku, Momo, at night do you want to go out to dinner with me? Momo, yes, of course, Izuku. Izuku, well, I want you to take your parents. I will talk to them myself about us. Momo would be surprised by what he asked. You're sure? Izuku, yes, I'm very sure. Momo, it's okay. Izuku, I'll send you the address where we'll meet later. After saying that, they would both walk hand in hand to the cafeteria. Izuku would go to see Nijire, who was sitting next to Mirio, and Tamaki waiting for him. Izuku, sorry for being a little late, it's just that I had to fix something. Mirio, it's okay, Izuku, Nijire is happy just seeing you. Nijire would be very blushing and would say, but what are you saying, Mirio? Izuku just laughed at the moment. Nijire, don't laugh, Izuku Baka. Chapter 15, I will never let you go. The green-haired boy would sit next to Nijire. The light blue-haired girl still had a tender blush on her cheeks. She would be a little nervous. It was the first time a boy made her feel that way. Mirio would see his friend who was very nervous and would say, Tell me, Izuku, what kind of training did you have? To have that speed and strength, to be honest, that kick you gave me still hurts. You didn't give me time to activate my quirk, he said with a smile. Izuku, it's pretty simple. Since I was 5 years old, I trained hard with my brother Meliodas and my master Ban. Nijire, Izuku, do you have a brother? Izuku, yes, of course. Nijire would be surprised. Izuku, and well, to have that speed I trained with weights on my feet. Currently I can carry 100 kilos on each leg. Mirio, who was drinking a drink upon hearing that he couldn't help but choke on his drink. 100 kilos, you said? The three big ones asked at the same time, so much that they caught the attention of everyone around them. Izuku, with a drop of sweat, would say, Yes, 100 kilos. Is that something strange? He would ask, somewhat confused. Tamaki, what kind of person are you? Izuku would bring his hand to his chin, saying, I am someone who wants to fulfill his dreams at all costs. In other words, I want to be the new symbol of peace. I want to save everyone with a smile. I also have to show everyone what someone like me can do. Nijire would be surprised to hear the freckled man's words. She would say, somewhat blushing, I know that one day you will be the best hero of all, and I promise that I will be by your side to see you fulfill your dreams. Izuku would have a slight blush at what he would say. Thank you, Miss Nijire. Mirio, when that day comes, I, the hero, Lemillion, will say, I saw him grow up when he was still a young man. Izuku, for me it would be a great honor to work with the big three, he said while smiling. So time would pass and the four of them talked about trivial things until lunchtime ended. The big three said goodbye to Izuku. The green-haired boy would return to his course. The hours passed relatively normally until the end of classes. It was time for everyone to go home. At the exit, Momo would wait for Izuku. Izuku, seeing her, would say, See you tonight? Giving him a tender kiss on the lips. Momo, see you tonight, love. Izuku would arrive home, take a shower, change his clothes and head to a very elegant restaurant. This was the most popular in the city. It was so famous that professional heroes like MT Lady Endeavor, Kamui, etc. They were going to eat at that place. Izuku would arrive at the restaurant minutes before it opened. The green-haired man had sent Momo the address and the time she would have to arrive. The minutes passed. Momo and her parents would arrive at 9 o'clock at night at the address that Izuku had sent them. They would get out of their limousine and look up at the large restaurant. Momo, why does Izuku want to meet here? This place is very famous, so to be able to dine here you have to make a reservation weeks in advance. The brunette would say in her thoughts. A waiter was waiting for them at the door of the restaurant. He would say, The Yagirosa family has finally arrived, he said while bowing. Please follow me and I will take you to your table. Momo and her parents would be amazed. Both would follow the waiter. He would leave them at a table which had a large window on its side with the best view. Momo and her parents would take their seats. The black-haired girl's mother would ask, Honey, why did we come here? You didn't tell us anything. Momo, I want to introduce you to a person who is very special to me. There was a tender blush on her face and a slight nervousness in her words. Her mother would see the expression on her daughter's face and with a mischievous voice she would say, Come on, don't tell me you're going to introduce us to your boyfriend. Momo would be blushing even more and would be about to say something when a very familiar voice would catch her attention. Izuku, wow, they finally arrived. Momo would look up and see Izuku wearing a chef's suit. He had a couple of plates in his hands. Momo would bite her lower lip when she saw the green-haired boy in that suit. For her, Izuku looked very cute, so much that she wanted to kiss him all the time. Mr. Yagirosa, honey, is he your friend? Momo was about to speak, but the waiter who had served them before would say, Sir, I already told you that you don't have to do this. Momo would watch as the waiter spoke to Izuku. Izuku, I already told you that I have no problem helping them. Momo would interrupt saying, Izuku, do you work here? Waiter, please excuse my lack of manners, Yagirosa family. I introduce you to young Izuku, he is the owner of this restaurant. Momo's parents have been impressed. Momo was the most surprised by that news. Izuku, I'll be right back. This would be changed. After a few minutes the freckled man would return in a big, elegant suit. Izuku, Allow me to formally introduce myself. My name is Izuku. The reason I summoned you here, Mr. and Mrs. Yaoyorozu, is because I want to ask for your approval to be able to go out with your daughter. I fell deeply in love with your daughter. I love her with all my heart. The only thing I want is to make the woman I love happy. For Momo, I would give my life to see her always happy. Momo would be very blushing. The green-haired man knew how to speed up her heart. Mrs. and Mr. Yaoyorozu would give Izuku their approval. Mr. Yaoyorozu, how could I deny my daughter happiness? Ever since she met you, she never stopped talking about you. Every time she talked about you, I could see how happy she was too. You already saved her twice, didn't you? First it was with those kidnappers and the second was at the entrance exam, right? Izuku would be surprised. Momo would be so happy that she would hug the green-haired boy. They had dinner and talked about trivial things. Momo, dinner is very delicious. Izuku, of course I was the one who prepared it. Momo, someday you'll have to cook something delicious just for me. The dark-haired girl would say while hugging the green-haired man. After having dinner, the Yaoyorozu family would have left the restaurant. Before leaving, Momo would have given Izuku a big long kiss on the lips. The next day Izuku did not have classes and would be walking around the city when suddenly a little albino girl would run into him. Izuku would help her up saying, "Are you okay? You didn't hurt yourself?" The girl's appearance was gray hair, she had a small horn on her forehead, and her eyes were red. Izuku would see that the little girl was barefoot and had bandages on parts of her body. The little girl would hug the freckled boy saying, Please don't let me go." Izuku would feel the meaning in the little girl's words, so he would say, "Don't worry, I won't let you go, I promise." From a dark alley a man emerged. His hair was dark brown, and on his face he wore a mask in the shape of a bird's beak that covered his mouth. In his hands he wore a pair of white gloves. Subject: Eri comes back here. Don't you see that you are bothering the young man? The little girl, now known as Eri, hugged Izuku tightly as she trembled. Izuku, don't worry, sir, she doesn't bother me at all. Eri would open her eyes, feeling the warmth in the freckled boy's words. Subject: Young man does not have to be so modest. In a moment I will take my daughter. She ran away from home and I came to look for her. Let's go, Eri. Eri would be about to let go of Izuku, but the green-haired man would hug her with all his strength, looking seriously at the guy saying, Until when do you plan to lie? She is not your daughter. If you want to take her, you'll have to kill me. Subject: In that case. He would take off the glove from his right hand and quickly touch the ground, creating thorns that would go at high speed towards Izuku and Eri. Izuku would quietly say, Hold on tight, Eri. After saying that, he would take a big leap upwards. Stayed at a height of 5 meters high, would raise his hand saying, Come to my sacred treasure. In Izuku's house there would be his sword, which would begin to shake and would leave the house at great speed, reaching Izuku's hand. Izuku, let the game begin. Chapter 16: Endeavor's Decision. With just a simple movement of his hand, the thorns would be cut into small fragments. Chisaki, what the hell? Izuku, whether I told you or not, you'll have to kill me to take Eri. I won't let anyone hurt her again. I want Eri to smile again. Eri would only shed a couple of tears at the green-haired man's words. In that, on the streets, they would be patrolling Ryukyu with Nijire, when they saw some huge thorns that came out of an alley. They would see a green-haired man, who had made a great leap into the air. Nijire, Izuku-kun? Izuku cuts through the thorns while holding Eri. Chisaki touched everything around him, to attack Izuku. Izuku cuts some thorns while dodging others. He managed to get close to Chisaki by giving him a strong kick in the face. Chisaki would crash into a wall. Izuku would be about to kick him again, but he would be tackled by a strong, muscular man. This was one of Chisaki's subordinates. The haired man would fly out and crash into a building. Nijire would run to see the green-haired man. She would see how Izuku had not let go of Eri. Before receiving the impact, he would have turned around, receiving the tackle from behind, protecting Eri at all times. Eri would look up and say, Please stop, If you continue like this, he will hurt you, all because of me. Izuku would stroke Eri's hair, saying, "Don't worry, I'll protect you, let me be your hero," he would say with a smile. Izuku would quickly get up. The muscular person approached him, saying, "Give up, boy, give us back the girl." "Izuku, don't take another step, otherwise you'll feel the edge of my sword." He would quickly go and beat up Izuku. In the blink of an eye, Izuku would be behind him. Several cuts had appeared on the subject's body. These were slight and not deep cuts. Izuku would spin around and give him a strong kick in the face, knocking him out. Nijire would see this, impressed, and that some thorns would attack Izuku again. Eri would only close her eyes. This would take the green-haired boy by surprise. He could barely react. A couple of thorns had pierced Izuku's leg, and the others would have pierced the part of his left shoulder. Nijire would see this, saying, "Izuku." She would attack Chisaki with her waves, but he would dodge them. Nijire would be floating underneath this, and a pair of thorns would come out, which would be about to hit Nijire, but Izuku would cut them all at high speed, while his shoulder was bleeding. He would look at Chisaki, saying, "This ends now." All of this was being broadcast on television. In the Midoriya house, everyone would be watching the news. "Izumi Oni-chan." She said this while tears fell from her face, seeing how hurt Izuku was. "Hasashi, why they are." "Inko, not my Izuku." In the Yaoyorozu mansion, there was a brunette with tears in her eyes, seeing how her green hair was hurt. "Izuku, free yourself, sacred treasure." Izuku's body would vibrate. Nijire would watch in astonishment as there were now 5 Izukus. These at high speed attacked Chisaki, which could not counterattack since they came from different sides. Eri, amazing. The 5 Izuku would have given him a powerful blow, knocking out Chisaki. Izuku would kneel down, saying, "I told you I wasn't going to let you go." Eri would just hug Izuku while crying. Izuku would just be losing blood. Nijire and Ryukyu would say, "Your wounds need to be treated." Izuku, "Yes, it's okay," he said while carrying Eri. Ryukyu, "I'll arrest Chisaki and the other guy." Nijire takes Izuku to the hospital. That's when Endeavor and Shota would arrive to help. They both saw the wounded green-haired man and how he had defeated the 2 villains. Endeavor would see Izuku's sword, saying, "That sword? You are?" Izuku, "Shhhhhh, keep it a secret." At that point, Izuku would be taken to the hospital along with Eri. Nijire had never separated from Izuku. Izuku would be in a hospital room. The freckled boy's wounds were not that serious. He would be changing. Nijire would have entered the room. She would see the green-haired boy without his shirt. The light blue-haired girl would have a slight blush upon seeing the green-haired boy's marked body. Izuku would see this and approach Nijire. He would put his forehead with Nijire's. This one would be even more blushing. Nijire, "Izuku W, what are you doing?" Izuku, "What's weird? Your face is red, but you don't have a fever. Are you feeling okay?" Nijire, "Why, yeah, I feel fine." She could feel Izuku's breathing. Nijire wanted to put her hands around the green-haired boy and give him a big kiss. She was about to do so when suddenly the doctor and 2 other people came in. Izuku would see Eri and Principal Nizu, saying, "Principal Nizu, what are you doing here?" "Nizu, young Midoriya, I will take care of you and little Eri." Eri would just hug Izuku. She didn't want to let go of the green-haired boy. Izuku would only hug her back. "Doctor, young man, you will have to take these pain medications. You were lucky that the wounds were not that deep. You will have to avoid using too much force. Otherwise your wound stitches could open." Izuku, "It's okay, doctor." After saying that, they would leave the hospital. Outside the Ryukyu hospital would be waiting for Nijire, since they still had to continue patrolling. Nijire said goodbye to Izuku by giving him a kiss on the cheek, making the freckled boy blush. Nizu, wow, what a handsome guy. At that moment a black van would arrive, from which the following would get out. Endeavor and Shota, who would take Izuku, Eri and Nizu to the academy. Upon arriving at the academy, everyone would go to the direction where Aizawa would also be. Chapter 17. A new beginning for Eri and Izuku. Nizu, young Izuku, right now you are in a very complicated position. You just used your quirk in public, being just a student at the UA Academy, and you did it without supervision from a professional hero. In addition to not having a license, according to the rules and regulations, this merits expulsion. Izuku would have listened to every word Nizu said, and he played along with Nizu. Eri would stand in front of Nizu saying, Please don't expel him, this is my fault, he just defended me. I don't want my hero to be expelled, please. The little girl would say with some tears in her eyes. Izuku would just hug her, and he would be happy to have saved Eri. Endeavor, director, there's no need to expel the young man. Nizu, what do you mean endeavor? Endeavor. Todoroki take responsibility for the boy's actions, it would be a complete waste of time to expel him. I saw the boy's determination, and because of that, I will take responsibility. Nizu, are you sure about this, Endeavor? Endeavor, of course, director. Shota would just look at his father with a small smile. Nizu, okay, effort. Then we'll tell the press that the boy was under your supervision. Endeavor, don't worry, I'll take care of that. Nizu, okay, now about little Eri, I've decided that we'll take care of her. But I'll be busy doing all the necessary paperwork, so I have to find someone to take care of her. Endeavor, I'll take care of her. Eri would just hug Izuku saying, I don't want to be separated from Izuku. Shota would just watch the scene as it was cute to watch. Endeavor would crouch down to little Eri saying, Don't worry, little one, he will also come with us. Izuku, no, I couldn't, that would be abusing your kindness. Endeavor would look at Izuku saying, Young man, you are very hurt, and I will not accept no for an answer. Besides, little Eri doesn't want to go if you don't go. Izuku, but I do have a house. Nizu, as far as I know, you live alone, don't you? Izuku, yes, of course. These words caught Shota's attention. Endeavor, all the more reason for you to come with us, we will take care of you until you recover. Izuku would look at Eri, who would be making cute eyes. Izuku, that's not fair, that's cheating. Eri, it's okay, I'll go with you. Endeavor, well, it's already decided. Aizawa, Izuku, take care of yourself, I'll see you next week in class. Since we will be busy these days and they will only have classes next week. Izuku, okay, sensei. Izuku would carry Eri and leave with Endeavor and Shota. Nizu, wow, that boy surprises me more every day. Aizawa, he is someone amazing. Meanwhile, in the boar's hat. Meliodas, it won't be long before we see him again. Ban, yes, I know, Captain. Meliodas, in a week we will be back with you, little brother, he would say with a smile. Meanwhile, Izuku and Eri had arrived at the Todoroki family house. Well, in other words, to the Todoroki family mansion. They would both get out of the truck. At the large entrance door would be a platinum-haired woman with a kind smile. Endeavor, we're back, honey. He would say this while giving the woman a hug. Shota, we're home now, Mom. Izuku and Eri would bow saying, Thank you for welcoming us into your home. The woman would only say, So you're the guy from TV. She would approach the freckled man, staring at him straight in her eyes. Izuku, my name is Izuku, and this is Eri. Mrs. Todoroki would crouch down and greet little Eri. Endeavor, okay, let's go into the house. Everyone would enter the house. Shota, Mom, what about my brothers? The woman would respond. Fuyumi left just now and Natsuo is at university. Shota, I see. Izuku and Eri would be amazed at how big and beautiful the house was inside. Endeavor, Shota, please show. Izuku and little Eri. Shota, it's okay, Dad. Follow me, Midoriya and Eri. Izuku, you can just call me Izuku. Shota would blush a little saying, It's okay, Izuku. Little Eri would take Izuku by the hand, and they would both walk to the room. Shota would take Eri to change her clothes. Izuku would have gone in to take a bath. The green-haired man thought while he was bathing, Maybe I should heal myself with that. No, better not, It's not that serious. So night would come, a strong storm would have broken out, loud thunder and lightning could be heard. Izuku would be lying down, when he would hear some small noises in Eri's room. He would go see the little girl. When opening the door, Izuku would see Eri sitting on the bed covering herself with the sheets. Izuku would approach Eri saying, "Are you afraid of thunder, Eri?" Eri would nod. Izuku would hug her saying, "Don't worry, I'll stay with you." Eri would hug the freckled boy, and then Shota would come in. "Izuku, Miss Todoroki, what are you doing here?" "Shota, I came to see little Eri." "I thought you'd be afraid of thunder." He told her this while shaking a little. Izuku would just let out a small laugh. "Shota, what are you laughing at?" Izuku was about to answer, but a loud thunder would be heard. Shota would give a loud scream and hug the freckled boy. "Izuku, I knew you were scared." "Thunder too." "Shota, if you tell anyone about this, I'll kill you," the bicolor would say while hugging the green-haired girl, a little blushing. "Izuku, right now you look very tender and cute. I always see you so serious, but now you look prettier." Shota would blush deeply. Izuku would approach the side of the bed, next to Eri. Since the little girl had fallen asleep but was holding Izuku's hand, Shota would lie down on the other side, leaving Eri in the middle. "Shota, I'll keep Eri company too." "Izuku, yes, whatever you say," he would say with a small smile. Shota would just pout a little. So the three of them would have fallen asleep in the same bed. The next day Shota would wake up and see that Izuku would be holding his hand and Eri would be hugging her. Izuku's face would be very close to Shota's. She would be a little blushed, but the warmth of Izuku's hand made her feel good. She would look at the time on her phone. And she would see that it was very early. She would say, "I'll sleep a little longer." She said this while holding Izuku's hand and bringing her face closer to his. Chapter 18. The warmth of a maternal hug. So 2 hours would have passed. It was already 9 in the morning. Izuku would slowly open his eyes. He would see Shota, who was very close. Their lips were almost about to touch. Izuku would blush deeply and slowly get up from the bed without making any noise. He would see Shota and Eri, who were hugging. Izuku would only say, "But how cute they both look." The green-haired boy would wash his face and teeth. He would go down since he was on the second floor of the mansion. When he went down, he would see Shota's mother, along with 2 other people. "Izuku, good morning." "Mrs. Todoroki, good morning, Izuku. Did you sleep well?" "I say, did you sleep well?" She would say this with a mischievous smile. "Izuku, yes, Eri, and I slept well," he would say somewhat nervously. "Mrs. Todoroki, what is your relationship with Shota?" "When I opened the door to Eri's room, she was lying down with you holding your hand, not to mention your faces were together." "Izuku, well, she's just a friend, and nothing more. She slept with us to keep Eri company." "Mrs. Todoroki, sure, just friends," he replied while winking at Izuku. Izuku would be uncomfortable at the moment. At that point, a girl a little taller than him would approach, saying, "Hello, nice to meet you. My name is Fuyumi Todoroki." "Izuku, nice to meet you, Miss Todoroki. My name is Izuku." He said this while bowing. "Mrs. Todoroki, Izuku, yesterday I heard Shota tell you Midorya." "Izuku, she must think I'm the brother of our classmate Izuku Midorya. That's why I told Shota to tell me, Izuku, when the director wakes up, that I'm not Midorya." "Mrs. Todoroki, I see." At that point, a young man would approach and say, "Nice to meet you, I'm Natsuo Todoroki. It's a pleasure to meet the boy who saved that little girl. I saw you on TV." "Izuku, nice to meet you, Natsuo." "Mrs. Todoroki, okay, Izuku, come sit down and have breakfast with us." "Izuku, okay, but what about Mr. Endeavor?" "Mrs. Todoroki, I left early for work." "Izuku, I see." So they would have breakfast while talking about trivial things. Natsuo, after having breakfast, would go to the university. Fuyumi would have gone out with some friends, leaving Izuku and Mrs. Todoroki in the dining room. "Izuku, thanks for the breakfast, it was delicious, Mrs. Todoroki." "Mrs. Todoroki, you're welcome, Izuku, I'm glad you liked it." She would look at the freckled man and ask, Izuku, sorry, I don't want to bother you, but that scar you have on your neck, how did you get it? Izuku would remember that Izumi had given him that scar when he had been kicked out of his home. Izuku would make a fake smile saying, This was a long time ago, I was hurt when I was little. Mrs. Todoroki would have noticed Izuku's smile, she would say. I see. Izuku would get up from the table saying, I'll go see Eri. If she doesn't see me by her side she might get scared. Izuku was about to leave, but he would be hugged by Mrs. Todoroki. Izuku, but what? Mrs. Todoroki, I'm sorry for asking you that question, I didn't mean to make you remember something sad. Izuku would open his eyes wide. Mrs. Todoroki, I know that smile was fake, I could see in your eyes the sadness you carry. I know I'm not a heroine, but let me extinguish your sadness with a motherly hug. Izuku would inadvertently be shedding a couple of tears, since he had grown up without the love of a mother. This was the first time he felt the warmth of a motherly hug. Izuku would only hug Mrs. Todoroki, while shedding several tears. Mrs. Todoroki would say, When you need to talk, I'll always be there to listen to you. She said this while placing her hand on the green-haired boy's hair. The moment was so warm it was as if they were mother and son by blood. Izuku, thank you very much. Mrs. Todoroki, okay Izuku, now go see Eri. Izuku would wipe away his tears saying, It's okay, while showing a big smile. Izuku would go up the stairs. The woman just looked at Izuku saying, Poor boy, there is a lot of sadness in his eyes, you can see that he never received a mother's hug. I will take care of giving him the love he never had. Izuku was about to grab the door handle of Eri's room to enter, but it would suddenly open. Shota would leave the room crashing into Izuku. They both fell to the ground. Izuku would rest his right forearm on the ground and with his left hand he would hold Shota's waist. Their faces were too close. Izuku, Miss Shota, are you okay? You didn't get hurt? Shota would be blushing as she looked into the green-haired boy's eyes. They could both feel each other's breathing. Shota, sorry for crashing into you. Izuku, it's okay. Shota would just look at the green-haired boy's eyes blushing. Izuku was just blushing. At that Mrs. Todoroki would say, Era, so just a friend and Izuku? I would say this with a mischievous smile. Don't you think it's too early for them to be doing that? Izuku and Shota would quickly get up and both would say, It's not what it seems, this was an accident. Both of them would blush greatly. Mrs. Todoroki just laughed at the scene. Shota would turn around and go to his room blushing. Upon entering she would close her door, while clutching her chest saying, Why do I blush when I'm with him? If I remember correctly, he is dating Yayorozu. Why can Izuku make me feel this way? The bicolor would say with a big blush. Izuku would enter Eri's room. The little girl would wake up. She would look everywhere until she saw Izuku. The little girl would just give Izuku a big hug saying, Good morning, Izuku. Izuku, good morning, Eri. He said as he returned the hug. Eri, thank you for staying by my side last night. Izuku, I promise you that I would never leave you alone and I will keep my promise until the end. He said this while showing a big smile. Izuku, okay, Eri, go wash your face and teeth, then you can come down to have breakfast. Eri, yes, it's okay. That's when Shota would come in saying, Izuku, here are some clothes for little Eri. Izuku, thank you very much, Miss Todoroki. Shota, see, can you call me Shota? Izuku, thank you very much, Shota. The bicolor would blush greatly. She would ask, How are your wounds? Izuku, they are healing little by little. Shota, how good. At that point little Eri would come out of the bathroom and say, Good morning, Miss Todoroki. Shota, good morning, Eri, you can call me Shota. Eri, it's okay, Miss Shota. Miss Shota, did you sleep well last night? Shota would remember that she had slept holding hands with Izuku. She would have a slight blush. Shota, why yes, I slept well. Izuku, okay Eri, I'll wait for you outside. Shota left you some clothes to change into. Eri, okay. Izuku would leave the room. That's when he would run into Mrs. Todoroki. Izuku, Mrs. Todoroki, after Eri has breakfast, I'll go home to get some clothes. Because all this took me by surprise. Mrs. Todoroki, okay Izuku, do you want Shota and I to accompany you? Izuku, if you guys want to eat, I have no problem. Mrs. Todoroki, it's decided, we'll go with you. At that moment, Shota and Eri would come out of the room, the latter wearing a very pretty red dress. Eri, how do I look, Izuku? Izuku would give a smile saying, You look like a princess. Eri would give a small smile and hug the freckled boy. Mrs. Todoroki, okay Eri, come on, let's have breakfast. Eri would walk hand in hand with Izuku. Shota in his thoughts would say, Those two look like father and daughter, they look very cute.
Let me know in the comments below if you guys want the next part. Also check out my other video that has been shown and left. Thank you for watching. If you enjoyed this video please like and share this video. And have a fantastic day. Bye.